My name is Zara and I am 64 years old. I have lived long enough to survive childbirth, bury my husband, forgive betrayals, and rebuild my life more than once. I thought I understood pain. I thought I understood disappointment. But that evening, standing on my own son's doorstep with a warm casserole trembling in my hands, I learned that the deepest wounds are not loud. They are quiet. And they echo. The invitation that was. The message had come 2 days earlier in the family group chat. Dinner at our place this Sunday, 7 p.m. See you all. There were heart emojis, smiling faces. Cousins replied excitedly. Sana's parents confirmed they would bring dessert. I stared at the screen for a long time. There was no mom attached to the message. No, we'd love for you to come. But technically I was in the group, so I convinced myself that I belonged. I spent Sunday morning cooking Hamza's favorite chicken korma, slow-cooked, rich, fragrant with cardamom and cloves. When he was little, he used to press his face against the kitchen doorway and say, "Mama, the whole house smells like love." That sentence stayed with me for decades. I wore my cream-coloured shawl, the one he gifted me on my 60th birthday. I even applied a little lipstick, though I rarely do now. "Don't overthink," I whispered to myself. "You're his mother." But sometimes being a mother is not enough. The doorstep. When I rang the bell, music floated through the wood, laughter, clinking plates, voices overlapping. "Family." Sana opened the door. Her smile lasted 1 second. "Those." I lifted the casserole slightly. I made korma. She stepped outside and gently pulled the door halfway closed behind her. "You weren't supposed to come," she said. I laughed awkwardly. I was in the group message. "That invitation was for close family," she replied. "We assumed you'd understand." Close family. The words felt unreal. "I am his mother," I said quietly. She crossed her arms. "We're trying to create healthy boundaries. You've been too involved. Tonight is not a good time." Not a good time. Inside, I heard my son's voice laughing. "Does Hamza know you're saying this?" I asked. Her silence was louder than any answer. "I think it's best if you go," she said finally. "We don't want tension." Tension. I hadn't even stepped inside. And then the door closed. Not slammed. Just firmly closed. That was worse. The silence of my son. I waited for the door to open again. For footsteps. For my son's voice calling "Mama." But nothing happened. Through the window, I saw shadows moving. The party continued. He did not come out. At 64 years old, I stood on a porch that no longer felt like my child's home. It felt like a stranger's house. The drive home. The casserole sat untouched beside me as I drove. I remembered another Sunday years ago. Hamza at 5 years old running toward me in the park, arms wide open. "Mama." Hamza at 12 bringing me a handmade card that said, "You are my best friend." Hamza at 23 holding my hands at his father's funeral. "You're all I have now." When did all I have become not invited? By the time I reached home, I wasn't crying yet. I was numb. And numbness is more dangerous than tears. The house that felt too big. My house greeted me with silence. My husband's portrait hung on the wall, his gentle smile frozen in time. "Well," I said aloud, forcing a laugh that cracked, "we're not close family anymore." I placed the casserole on the table and sat down. That's when it hit. The tears didn't fall softly. They came violently, years of sacrifice, sleepless nights, and unconditional love pouring out in one uncontrollable storm. I wasn't crying because she rejected me. I was crying because he didn't defend me. The message. At 9:17 p.m. my phone buzzed. "Hamza." "Mom, Sana said you showed up unexpectedly. Please understand we're building our own space. Let's talk later." Unexpectedly. As if I were a stranger. I stared at the message for 10 minutes. I typed, "I am your mother." Deleted. Typed, "After everything I've done." Deleted. Finally I wrote, I understand. It was the heaviest lie I've ever sent. The mirror. That night I stood in front of my mirror. Who was I? For 30 years I had been Hamza's mama. After my husband died, my entire identity wrapped itself around motherhood. I attended every school event, helped with university applications, supported his wedding financially, even moved closer to his neighborhood to be available. Available? Was that the problem? Had my love become suffocating? Or had their independence turned into exclusion? I realized something painful. I had built my world around being needed. And now I was no longer needed. Reclaiming Zara. The next morning I opened the storage room. In the corner sat my old sewing machine, covered in dust. Before I became Mama, I was Zara, the girl who stitched her own wedding dress, the woman who ran a tailoring business from her living room when money was tight. I wiped the machine carefully. The first stitch felt shaky. The second felt steadier. By evening, I had finished 2 cushion covers. By the end of the week, I had created an online page showcasing handmade home decor. Orders came slowly at first, then faster. Women in the neighborhood began visiting to learn stitching. My quiet house filled with laughter again, but this time it wasn't dependent on one son's approval. One afternoon, a 22-year-old student said, "Auntie Zara, you're so independent. I hope I'm like you at 64. I smiled. For the first time in months, my heart felt full without waiting for anyone to invite me. The visit. 3 months later, the doorbell rang. Hamza stood there, alone. He looked tired, older. "Can I come in?" We sat across from each other in my living room, the same room where I had cried. "You've changed," he said, looking around at fabrics sewing students' projects, framed certificates from workshops I'd started. "Yes," I said calmly, "I have." He swallowed. "I didn't know Sana told you not to come until later. She felt overwhelmed, she thought you judged her." "I never judged her," I replied softly, "but maybe I didn't know how to step back either." He looked surprised. "I wasn't attacking. I was reflecting." "I should have come after you," he whispered. "Yes," I said gently, "you should have." There was no anger in my voice. That frightened him more than shouting would have. "I miss you," he said finally. And for a moment, the little boy who once clung to my sari appeared in his eyes. "I never stopped loving you," I said, "but love does not mean losing myself." Dinner again. The following week, I received a direct message. "Mom, we would love for you to come to dinner this Friday." Not in a group chat. Not assumed. Invited. When I arrived, Sana opened the door. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. "I accept," I replied. No drama. No humiliation. Just dignity. Dinner was polite, careful, a little awkward. But it was respectful. And that mattered. The boundary I learned. After dinner, Hamza hugged me tightly. "You've always been strong, Mama." I smiled. No beta, I just forgot for a while. As I drove home that night, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt balanced. I understood something I hadn't at 30 or 40 or even 60. Children grow. They build new families. And sometimes, in their effort to create independence, they push too hard. But we, as parents, must never collapse when doors close. Because our identity cannot live inside someone else's house. The moral. At 64 years old, I learned. Love your children deeply, but do not shrink yourself to remain welcome. Respect is not automatic, even in family. It must be mutual. And sometimes the greatest revenge is not anger. It is growth. The night my son's wife told me to go away, I thought I had lost my place in their lives. Instead, I found my place within myself. And that place is unshakable. Because I am Zara. I am 64 years old. and I no longer wait at doors that close on me.